Welcome to our space where talking about the inspiring things with inspiring people is what inspires us. Waiting for you here are the infinite possibilities that creation, collaboration, and connection have to offer. A universe where we see everything through rose-tinted spectacles that help us to keep our faith in the power of imagination alive and well. And now, let's talk. Callum Simpson, music activist, producer, and promoter, also known as DJ Cal Jader, is our very special guest today in this episode of Metralla Rosa, or for Metralla Rosa. He is also the soul and heart of Movimientos, or as I like to say, el motor y el corazón de Movimientos. Movimientos is the biggest, more interesting, most influential, and most active non-profit organization promoting Latin American music in the UK. They are also a record label. They are also a talent agency. They also do live stream events. They do radio sessions, and they are basically very, very important, creating content to celebrate the Latin American music beyond mainstream, or beyond the perception of the mainstream. Thank you for being here with me.
You put it much better than I would.
No.
Thank you for the kind words.
Thank you. Thank you for accepting our invitation.
That's a pleasure to be here.
It is the first time we have someone so important in the Latin American scene in London that is actually not connected in a sense of heritage, your own family or your own reality with the Latin American culture. So I would like, of course, to start from the beginning. How a guy that have family from Scotland and from
England, north of England,
and Scotland, have been so connected and so related and so close to the Latin American movement.
It's a big question. Yeah, I mean, it started through my politics degree, really. If I trace it back, because I was studied Latin American politics as a module, as part of a politics degree at Kingston University, and had a really inspiring lecturer.
You did political science?
Yeah, politics, as it was called. And to be honest, the two modules that I was really interested in were Latin American. It was just Latin American studies and the politics of music. So, and those were the two topics that really kind of got me, excited. Everything else was like EU, a European Union, or I don't know. It was
kind of boring.
I wasn't really,
compare with
and of course the what we were studying about was that crazy period. I mean, it seems like the whole history of Latin America has been a crazy period, but
yeah.
So where do you start with that? But particularly, I focused in on Chile and Nicaragua and
Chile,
what happened in
Pinochet,
the 70s
Chile?
and 80s, of course, this was just really eye-opening. It kind of blew my mind that this was going on, and obviously then you had the Sandinista revolution in the 80s in Nicaragua, and that was, as we studied that. But I mean, ultimately, I had a really inspiring lecturer called Julia Buxton, who I always give credit for inspiring. Everyone says it's a teacher or that can inspire you in a subject, and she just kind of approached the subject with an objectivity, but she was really passionate about it. But she was that was the start, and then after I came out, I wasn't particularly academic. And after I came out of university, I had the feeling I wanted to follow up on this kind of thread. It was something something you knew you have to follow. And I saw an advert advertising Nicaragua solidarity campaign. We're looking for volunteers, and I went to volunteer for them, just doing office admin stuff a couple of times a week. And Nicaragua solidarity campaign were quite important in the sort of genesis of the Latin American scene. You know, if you ask
musical
someone like
scene.
yeah, because they had a night called Club Sandino.
I wanted to ask.
Which I mean, Andy Wood, who's been working in the
We are
Latin
talking about
American scene,
what year, more or less?
I mean, they did Club Sandino. I guess was like late 80s, I think, because it was solidarity with the Sandinista government, I suppose, and it was, there was also a strong Cuban solidarity movement at that time, and a lot of these. It was really interesting because I look back at some of their flyers of the events, and they used to organise tours around the UK, like Cuba Solidarity and Nicaragua Solidarity, and there would be solidarity events in nearly all the like major towns and cities in the UK.
Wow!
So that really gave, and the reason I mentioned Andy Wood is because then I think, you know, he started his musical career, you know, touring a lot of these bands and helping tour through that network, you know.
And this Sandino Club, were those parties, were those nights, or it was a venue called like that, Sandino Club? They
did it at different venues, as I understand. I mean, when I joined it, it was sort of 2000. I was come out of university, so it was 2005 or so.
But how was the scene? Because I think that we are talking about the 90s, right? And it is quite lovely for me to think that I was in Venezuela working on a radio, playing British music. And you were here working for a solidarity campaign with Nicaragua, going to a club that was called Sandino Club. It's just crazy and beautiful. Instead, I was interested in the factory in Manchester, and you were interested.
I was interested in that scene as well. I think that they've been going, and I mean, it's an interesting. I need to look into it and find out the sort of timeline of it. When I came in, they were hosting events at I think it was the Red Lion Pub in Seven Sisters in Green Lanes, and that was where Cuba Solidarity and Nicaragua were based. And they used to host these events in the back room. They'd have a Latin band. And they would have a couple of DJs who became friends. Max Reinhardt, from who was Radio 3 presenter, and Rita Ray, both of whom were really inspiring figures because they used to come and DJ, and they let me go on the decks. I, sort of tried to, because I was a DJ at the same time, and obviously it was because I was dabbling in a little bit of Latin music as well at that time, and picking up records, sort of Latin jazz and Latin fusion stuff, and I was jumping on the decks when I could, or doing the warm up at Club Sandino, and they were very kind, and they came to DJ at some of our early nights, Max and Rita, and at the same time they were involved in a really important night called the Mambo Inn, which was in Loughborough Junction, which probably had it was before my time, obviously. But as I understand it, it was Friday and Saturday night, and those two nights, they apparently packed out every weekend, and it was a real melting pot of African and Latin music.
And because it was in London,
that was
it
in
couldn't
the 90s,
have been in any other way.
Exactly.
But also, when then you started Movimientos? Because I understand that you started with someone else. You were
that's right,
making it.
So Jess Crocker, who was my colleague,
which was also English.
She was volunteering. She was from the US, and she. Sorry. Yeah, no, it's fine.
I said he.
She was volunteering as well for Nicaragua Solidarity Campaign, and we were at an AGM, I think, one morning, like hungover, and we were like, yeah, it was a good event. We were talking about the event the previous night, and we were like, yeah, it was a good event. We should do our own one that have a broader reach, not just the Nicaragua solidarity campaign people, because that was near the end of that night. It kind of reached its peak, let's say. And I think we wanted to do something maybe for a younger generation and to broaden it so that there was also a socially conscious dimension to it, and that was really important.
Is that why Movimientos could be read also as a political?
Yeah, in a way. The duality of the meaning was, and we came up with that name on that hungover morning, and it was.
But it's good to have that duality, that
ambiguity. Of course. And as soon as Jess was the one said it, and she said, let's call it. And I was like, yeah, straight away. That's the name.
That's the name.
Let's do it. And almost the name, how sometimes a name can set. That's all you need.
Yeah.
You just need a name, and then you go.
Yeah.
And it's like that. You're ready. You're ready. Yeah. So, and I felt
names
like it was inspirational because, it said so many things in one word.
Exactly. And I heard you in a podcast saying that you like that quote from Emma, I think the anarchist, the writer, one of the writers.
I should know this. It wasn't me that quoted
it. The anarchist, that she says, if I cannot dance to it, it's not my revolution. What's the name of her? 1 second. It's not fair to not mention the person that said Emma Goldman. That's the name. So it was important for you to blend the cultural aspect of being alive, and maybe with some sort of also good political intentions or a bit more idealistic vision of the world.
I think, and also if you look at some of the most important music forms, and also the music that I'm interested in, a lot of black music, a lot of Afro-Latin music, comes from a place of resistance.
Yeah.
That is a... Yeah. And often it gets whitewashed, and possibly, certainly that's been a learning process for me to understand that music and how much this music, and especially the music from Latin America, is rooted in resistance.
Yes.
And communities coming together to, and also having a safe space where they can join to and cement their own culture, so that
that's true. And the more politically clear and conscious and over clear, the less interesting for me it is. Like all the Cuban cantautores, like Silvio Rodriguez, all that music is less interesting for me, because what I really love is the resistance that is not telling you in your face, but it's making you feel what you need to feel, think what you need to think, and act like you should act. It's a bit of more inspiring because it's less
that's it.
Clear, right?
That's it. That's I agree. I completely agree. It's boring when someone tells you how to think.
What
if they plant a seed in your head of what, and make you think for yourself. I think that's important, and make you interact with others. I think that is the importance of music and culture, rather than saying, very explicit messages, which can be important as well, of course,
And some people maybe need them, but I feel like they are a little bit patronizing and not necessarily what inspires me the most. But so the events of Movimientos from the beginning were this idea of bringing someone from outside the UK, very well known from Latin America, plus a club, melting that with the clubbing culture, so DJs that could also play some good Latin music. What was the ethos of Movimientos?
Initially it was just with the first nights we did in Brixton with just the DJs.
Which one was that night?
It was in the Brixtonian, which is long since gone.
Okay.
And it's down beehive place, a really shady little alleyway that you would never even realize is there.
Amazing.
And it was brilliant night. The first night was with a Colombian hip hop group who were over for a conference called Zona Marginal, and I don't know if they're still going, but you know, quite kind of militant Colombian hip hop. They were
with
they
that
were great.
name is
So that was great, but then it sort of found its feet with the combination of documentary film, and that was the live music came later. And initially it was all about showing films, and then we had a brilliant venue in Islington which started around 2005-06 and peaked, you know, around those years, and that was in Salmon and Compass, which was it's in Chapel Market, and it was when Chapel Market was really buzzing, just before Islington just became completely, that area of Islington became really gentrified, and it was a
little bit more rough.
Well, it was just a bit more culturally interesting. There was a record shop there. The people, I mean, there's still a market there in Chapel Market, but it was just a little bit of a more exciting area. And the Salmon and Compass was a very interesting venue. For me, lots of other things going on there. I really liked it as a venue. And yeah, so it was the setup was, we had an upstairs. It was perfect, and we never really found another venue like that. Maybe apart from Passing Clouds, where you could show films upstairs and have the DJ thing downstairs. And then gradually, as we evolved into different and moved into different venues, the live music became more prominent. I suppose, you know, initially it's really hard to put on live music in London. It's a real challenge. So I think it was only when Notting Hill Arts Club invited us to do a night. The bosses at Notting Hill Arts Club, which is also another place I'd really admired, and they came to ask us if we wanted to do a night there. So it was a no-brainer.
Tuesdays?
Yeah, the Tuesday nights was was a really important night for us, and just it was tough, you know, tough.
Bring people promoting. On Tuesday was tough.
Yeah, I mean it was different in then, maybe like 15 years ago, when there was more of a culture of going out during the week. I feel like that's changed a lot in the last, and I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about this, but it feels to me like it's all about the weekends now. And
maybe that's terrible, because that's a reflection, in my opinion, of how bourgeois we have become, in the sense that people work from Monday to Friday, like in companies that they go with a Friday look on Friday, and then
quite structured.
It's too structured, and the culture should be for every day, not just for the weekends.
So that was the thing, and our Salmon and Compass night was Thursdays, and it was like, you know, there was 1 week before that, 1 day before the weekend, so that we had that.
And do you remember that night when you realized, oh my God, I'm doing something great. There's a lot of people that is interested. I feel like I'm connecting a community, not just me with a community, but I'm facilitating the option for a community to get together and have a space and being heard and being seen.
Yeah.
Is that also, how important is that?
Absolutely.
For you?
It was like, it was so important, that especially to create the little team that we had around us. You know, there was Jess and myself. There was a brilliant marketing guy from Argentina called Agustin, and there was Jeff Arias, who was the DJ. He was the guy that really inspired me to love salsa and cumbia, and he brought the vibe. You know, when he DJ'd,
what kind of style was?
Yeah, like he loved Fania and all of the classic salsa, but also he was like me. He was like me, that he had kind of interest in the hip hop, the kind of slightly less commercial reggaeton, and the you know, just the more crossover stuff. So, and he was a really sort of galvanizing force, I would say. You know, really charismatic. And so it was characters like that, and there was other people like Dario Kenner, and there was a little team of us that it felt a really nice connected vibe. And yeah, the people that came to those nights still kind of, I had a friend of mine who mentioned it the other day and said, that made her feel at home in London. She just arrived in London. And I think those kind of spaces are really important, especially for migrant people coming here. And they, some people will come here, they want to reject their culture, or they just want to, embrace the UK culture, and that's brilliant. But, if we can have a space that feels like a little bit London, feels a little bit UK, but can feel at home for Latin American
and
people,
also
I think that's important.
having someone working for, let's say, if you see Latin American culture as a thing, having an infiltrated from England culture is super helpful, because you can, obviously you have connections, you have an understanding of what to do, how to do it, and it really helps to create that sense of collaboration or cooperation, that it shouldn't be music and culture shouldn't be just for me that I know, it should be to share. So the response of the Latin American community, I know, was good, but how was the response to these initiatives from people from more local or maybe Europeans from other countries, or maybe other English people?
Well, I think we always appealed to those Brits or people who already had a little affinity with Latin America, or maybe they traveled there or they were studying about it. So I think it naturally appealed to those kinds. There was already a kind of big community of those, Brits who had an interest, and they loved that as well. And I think, people always wanted to see that alternative side, or they wanted to. I think one of the key things was the non-conformist music as well, and not playing, because actually it was very close to, I've forgotten the name of it now, but a very famous salsa club just on the corner, round the corner from the San Bernardino Campus. But I think we always set out to bring people in that were maybe put off by the salsa thing. We played a lot of salsa, and I grew to love it, and absolutely it's probably my favorite music in the world now. But yeah, I think that's what I never really started in the Latin American scene, or with that from the dance culture. That was never really. I was absolutely hopeless at dancing salsa. So Jeff Arias, he would DJ a tune and go out and dance with various people, and I'd be like, well, yeah, impressive. And then he'd come back and play another tune, and I'd be like, okay, I've got a lot of work to do here to live up to this. But and I think
So, for example, your nights were at the beginning and still designed somehow to attract people that not necessarily are into going to a place and dance.
Yeah.
And they actually would feel pulled off if they think that that's the vibe of the night. Some more musical people. But at the same time, trying to not betray the spirit of tropical kind of carnival spirit of.
Because that's always a hook for people. It can also be an exoticization to which I recognize that you can be portraying Latin America through this lens of carnival, tropical, always partying, and that can be negative in a sense as well. But I think it does draw people in. Yeah. And if you can draw people to the culture through that, and then they access a different perspective on it, then I think that's really important. And in our case, it was about drawing people to the films through the music, and an awareness of the politics at the time. As you know, in the mid noughties was like a huge period of change in Latin America. So
Yeah.
So much going on, and so it was also a lot more clear cut then, I think, in a way. The politics was so it was easier to. Everything's become much more polarized now, whereas in that time, even not so long ago,
Yeah.
there was a
more syncretic. Everything was a little bit more eclectic.
It was clearer. Yeah. But yeah.
And as a DJ, when did you really started, and when did you start becoming this figure, this DJ of Latin American music? Because you have been in Brazil, you have been in many places.
Yeah, I mean,
with your style. But if you ask me what's your style, it's probably not gonna like. You are not gonna like this. But I think you have a great sensibility for not obvious sounds. And I also feel like it's really experimental without being too pretentious. But that doesn't help, right? That doesn't describe. That doesn't describe the music. How would you say?
You're generally doing a better impression of describing me than I would be able to. But
how would you describe your style?
Yeah, well, I mean, as I talked about earlier, I think I was already DJing at that time in a bar. I think around about the time, early noughties, I came out of university and started DJing every Thursday night in a bar, just playing records, all kinds of things, you know, hip hop, jazz, disco, whatever. I love all of those, and still do love all of that music. So I think you know, and I grew up with a hip hop, drum and bass kind of this clubbing kind of background, and I would go to drum and bass clubs. So for me, that was such an important perspective to have to then almost apply that to bring that to Latin American night, and at that time it was also really interesting because you have a lot of music like Sidestepper and artists like Nicodemus and Quantic who are, you know, making music kind of inspired by Latin America, but then you had bands like groups like Sidestepper that were starting to push that kind of tropical electronic sound, you know, and it was really,
it's more like a feeling.
And it was really, I think obviously you had Los Amigos Invisibles and people like that that were really interesting in doing something, but there wasn't, and you have acts like Nortec and Nova Lima
did you
around that, and Gotan Project. Nova Lima we put on with Como No, probably together. I think it must have been about 2008 was only for the first time we did. But then they also played at our 10th anniversary in 2015. But yeah, so bands, acts like that were just kind of, there was that sort of movement of a slightly different electronic, and I think around 2010 you saw a movement which I really resonated with, more of like the electrocumbia, and then this sort of folkloric digital scene of artists like Chancha, Via Circuito, and now that is just huge, you know, in the last 10 years.
I would have always to thank you for Lido Pimienta, because that was a discovery I did through Movimientos.
You would have found her eventually. I'm pretty sure you would have found her, because she's magnetic, you know.
She's a queen.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's a real shame that it didn't happen, but she was meant to come.
Yeah, I know.
For last year.
But you did something online.
They did a flower interview.
Okay.
With her, which was really cool, and she's such a character.
Two different things. Flower and
well, I mean, we were partnering on the show, that would have brought her over for the Flower Festival.
That can happen in the future, I guess.
Inshallah.
I hope so. Yeah.
I mean, she's like my favorite artist right now at the moment as well, just because of what she represents, and I mean that album is just mind-blowing.
Musically, visually, it's everything together. She's not scared of anything. She's just embracing all the craziness.
She's got nothing to lose.
Nothing to lose. It's very beautiful what she's putting out there, and very poetic. I really like it.
She's interesting. Because she was nominated for a Grammy, I think. And she put, there was a list of all the artists, and I think she made a tweet saying something like, "I'm the only one," and she's not in a sort of judgmental way, but I'm the only one still paying rent on this list.
On this list,
you know, and
so please support me.
Yeah, I think that was so cool. That, you know, she's just, you know, this ordinary person in some respects, and
not playing the show business.
Yeah, and she's the Bjork of
Latin
America.
I was thinking that yesterday. It's
like
not fair to do that kind of comparisons, but why not?
Exactly.
Bjork is lovely.
She should be as big as Bjork. But let's see.
I love to do those things, but I know it's a little bit politically incorrect, and so. You are now celebrating 15 years. So you were just talking about the 10th anniversary, and now it's been 15 years with a very complicated year in between. Let's say 2020 hasn't been easy for any musician, anyone that works in the events area of events, live events. How it's been for you?
For Movimientos, been a bit of a break, to be honest, which has been slightly welcome, because some of the events that we do, it can be non-stop and incessant. It can be all the time, and we're doing probably too many events. And actually sometimes it's good to take the foot off the pedal and step back and.
But what gave you that distance? What kind of perspective gave you?
I'm still working that out, but I mean, I think, it's good. It's a good chance to reflect on all the things that we're involved in and all the artists that we're working with. From our part, we've tried to focus more on the label in this period and the record label, which had always been a sort of side project, and I think it was always something that I wanted to develop more. Especially we've mostly worked with artists from the UK, Latinx artists from the UK, but we had one release with a Colombian salsa band called La Mamba Negra, which was like a phenomenal band, and it was the only vinyl release we've made, and it's a brilliant record, and so I wanted to sort of develop that and try and elevate. We're in such a strong position here in London, and try to
it's actually elevate. An opportunity, because to focus. I'm not gonna say the word again. Every time I say it, I have someone at home that loves. To put your entire attention on only one side of Movimientos was somehow stealing from the project the opportunity to try things that maybe just because it requires a little bit more going out of your way and rethink your concept, or see how I'm going to do this, how I'm going to make this rentable, financially sustainable. It's interesting. I think this time has worked for all of us in that way. And this album you did, Santuario, Sanctuary, it's really beautiful. You can buy it online. You can
on Bandcamp. You can support it. Or stream it.
Yes. We all should, because it's 19 art. How many artists?
19 tracks.
19 tracks. Many were especially commissioned for the album, and all the funds are to support.
3 organizations: LAWA, Latin American Women's.
Latin American Women's Aid,
and then Latin American Women's Rights Service, laws, and then a organization called.
How can you do that? How can you put all that effort and still, after a year like 2020, gave the money to organize? I think it's lovely. I think it's beautiful. But coming from South America, I find it difficult.
The original idea was to just take tracks from existing tracks and just put it together in a sort of, let's not in a slack way, but just get existing music, trying to make it quite simple, let's put this out and let's do it
Create
together.
A cover
and then it's sort of evolved, and then I've contacted, if you've got a track, you can donate for this cause. And then people were like, okay, I'll make a track. And
wow.
And I was like, okay, well,
that's lovely.
Sure? Yeah, and the best, I mean, some of the best music on there is music that was made from scratch, or there was a remix made by British producers, Village Cuts, of a Bristol-based band whose music is still yet to come out, but they remixed a track, the Jaman X track, and yeah, there was a lot of collaborations, as you know.
It feels really fresh, and I think it's very representative if anyone wants to know what kind of music Movimientos support, because it is this feeling of fusion, and as we said in Latin America, el gusto está en la mezcla. This very fusion, all kind of fusions, but any particular track is close to your heart, or all of them? Or?
Well, the one I mentioned, the Jaman X, because of, obviously it was also the one that made me think, okay, this is, there's a bigger concept here, maybe. And then one of the also producers from Village Cuts started working with Bush Baby, the DJ, who I'm sure you know, Janine, who's also the artist of the compilation of the Sanctuary artwork, and they made the track called Agua Viva, which was this sort of down tempo dembo kind of, and it's with her spoken word. And for me, it was that track just has everything. It's got Canty Kenna, who's the flute player from Locandes, and who's we've worked with for many years. Really great Andean fusion band. And so
there are a lot of women, female artists.
Yeah, so
that's also interesting.
Yeah, and
do you think the new scene it's very strongly female, or maybe
that's
you were trying to support consciously, or was just a coincidence?
We've always worked with Wara, for example, who are very female oriented, always have been, with Eliane and Juanita leading the band. And
we have an episode with Eliane Correa that you should check if you haven't.
You should check it.
Because she's a powerhouse. By the way, let's just do a short break and listen from that album we are talking about, Sanctuary, Yo No Me Voy by Wara, and then after you have a taste, we come back. Yo No Me Voy. That is the second track of the album.
Yeah.
It's such a powerful song in every way. The video is amazing.
Yeah.
I can't believe that the video took so long to. Why do you laugh?
Well, because it took so long, and I'd been hearing it was like a mythical thing.
Yeah.
I've been hearing about it for years. Like, oh yeah, we're just shooting this video. Oh, it's nearly ready, you know. But what about the track? That I don't think they'd even made the track, and it was the genesis of the track. But they'd had the idea of the video in mind, and that's the thing about Ellie, is that she has a million things going on in her mind,
yeah.
you know, and
at the same time,
she's an amazing force, and she will, yeah.
She's very talented, very creative, and she told us that one of the first opportunities they got to do shows, to do festivals, to play around the city was with Movimientos. She mentioned you, of course, in the interview. So it is a very strong relationship. But you...
Yeah, I mean, and because I was doing my radio show at SOAS at the time. I don't think that was how we met, actually, but there was some kind of connection there, and she was really involved. There was a really strong music scene in SOAS around that, about 10 years ago, when she was there. Well, before, actually, 2008 and 9. And yeah, of course, Wara came out of that little scene, and it brought her love of Cuban salsa and Cuban music with this drum and bass, hip hop, R&B, soul kind of thing. And it was just like, yeah, this is the band I've been waiting for, you know, in a way. And they were rough and ready, and yeah, of course it wasn't perfect, but you could just tell there was so much energy there on stage, and so much. And people
potentially,
and also because of the political message as well, they always had that sort of so it was, for me, that it was always a band that I've loved, and yeah, and it's amazing to see her career evolve and how many different things she's got. You know, she's teaching now at SOAS, and she's part of the Hans Zimmer orchestra, so
wow.
It's like,
so having them in this compilation, it's kind of a very important achievement.
Exactly.
In a way, because you have also been supporting them since the beginning, and seeing the product of this song you have just listened to, which is powerful, is good produced, the video is good. I imagine it feels like means a lot.
It means a lot to me to see that, and to have it on the compilation, which is, you know, a celebration of our longevity in the scene as well, you know. So
and journey together.
Yeah.
And tell me about the rest of the artists as talent agency Movimientos work with.
Well, I guess it's just an extension of the people that we feel strongly connected with. I was working at Camden Council until about 2008, 2009. And you know, so I was doing Movimientos, and
do you still have a day job?
No, that was the point, and I around about 2008 I sort of went part-time there. But the point is that I was contacted through Global Local, which is an arts council organisation and they wanted us to curate their Latin American bands, new emerging bands kind of component. So we would program bands for festivals all over, from Glastonbury to local councils and festivals in Newham or wherever, and so it was a real important step just to see that someone believes in us and what we do. The organisation is Continental Drifts, and my friend there, Christoph, who is a huge supporter of the festival world and underground music, you know. So he really showed belief in us and what we do, and I think that was like this. When someone shows that kind of belief in what you do, then you think, right, there's potential in this, and we can take it beyond that, and just so alongside doing our events and trying to provide a platform for alternative and people to make creative music, not just recycle what is happening you know, in Latin America, but create new fusions. And that was what Global Local was really trying to facilitate, that connection of like UK Latin sounds, which is why Wara fits perfectly for that, because it has so many components that don't just necessarily fit into Latin America. So yeah, for me there was it sort of was an extension of our events and the bands that we worked with that we liked most of all, I suppose. And so yeah, we still book bands for festivals. I wouldn't say it's like the main thrust of our work, but yeah,
but it is important.
Yeah,
and you have Collectiva in that bunch of artists, and they just came out with a very interesting track. I think it's called Under the Skin.
It's just called Under the.
Okay, I completed it in my head.
It's okay. Everyone can come up with their own like.
Why did I assume that? There's a movie called Under the Skin with Scarlett Johansson.
Is it? Okay, yeah.
So Under the.
Yeah.
And the video is beautiful. It's very, very lovely, very, very well made.
Yeah.
And you were telling me before the interview that they are quite appealing for the English audience. Why do you think is that?
Well, I think they reflect. I think it's let me say that I think that probably a lot of the acts that we've worked with work well for a festival audience, and at certain venues and in certain niche environments. But I think there's a certain musical sensibility in the UK that is quite jazz centric, quite kind of, it's hard to describe. There's a certain style, let's say, that kind of I don't know how to put it, but I think Collectiva is
they have the first thing.
Yeah, they have this sort of, and obviously there's a strong kind of young UK jazz scene at the moment, which is really exciting, and I think has partly inspired, you know, Collectiva and Viva, who runs the band, to do the project. But you know, I don't think they're not doing it to fit into any kind of scene. They're doing it for their own reasons. Yeah. But it's good timing in that sense of that a lot of that UK jazz doesn't necessarily have, there's not so much of a Latin vibe on it. I mean, a lot of acts are incorporating those kind of sounds and rhythms, but I think it was time. We needed a UK
something
Latin
with that feeling, but
kind
more
also something has very
Latin.
London, has a very strong UK identity as well. You know, it's got a kind of funky vibe. You know, so I mean, for me, it's really exciting. So yeah,
and that title. That uncompleted title Under there.
And I think that there's more to come. So and I think that there's also.
So did you produce the video?
I didn't produce the video. No, but we helped make it happen, and we're involved in.
You are involved
in all aspects of the.
It's part of the. Of it.
Yeah, and now you should say that the track is actually Collectiva and Maria Grapsa, who's a Greek keyboard player. She's not in the video. No, the percussionist is Lily, who's also from that SOAS generation in 10 years ago.
This lady you mentioned is blonde. Blonde short hair. I think I know her.
The keys player. Or
the Greek lady.
Maria Grapsa. She's dark haired. She's not in the video.
Confusing. Okay.
So the track was written with her. But yeah, no, it's really exciting to see where they're going to go with that. And yeah, they've just recorded a few more tracks. So
until now, it's been successful. Are you selling well? Santuario for all these noble cause?
I think it's raised about 500 quid so far. So it could do more. I was aiming for more. So if you're watching, go out and buy it.
Yes,
It's paying what you like.
Let's all buy it. How can you buy it? Online and in physical?
The key thing is there's no physical.
There's no
so
physical.
Bandcamp is really crucial here, because Bandcamp is a platform that has allowed us to charge, you know, an amount that maybe you would pay for a CD, but because you're supporting a cause, then I think people are donating towards that.
Very happy.
A lot of people don't know what to do with digital files now. Okay, so you're going to own the music, so what? And most people listen to Spotify. So, and if you know, it's streaming on Spotify, so you can stream it all you like, and if you stream it, you know, 1,000 times, maybe we'll get 2p.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of money to be made on the digital front.
But
so,
if you buy it as
digital files, then you own it. Yeah. But we're developing merch at the moment, so we're going to have some t-shirts and maybe tote bags.
Okay,
so you know, you can support the cause and get something. But people want to buy something. I think sometimes there's artifacts. You know, I think there's and there's such a huge scene for the vinyl market these days. You know, people are buying a lot of vinyl. And people have asked for that on vinyl, but the cost of producing it and then actually raising money from that is
it was difficult. That way was difficult. Yeah. So, now I see it clearly. Yes. And in the places you have been in South America, what's your favorite? You have to have a favorite. I have the feeling that it's Colombia, but it's just my feeling.
Don't tell Teresa.
Or maybe Brazil and Colombia.
No,
Brazil is just amazing.
I was thinking about Brazil recently because it had come up. It was 7 years to the day, and I was probably. I mean, I have to say that's the place.
Because that's a continent. It's so different.
I was really lucky because I landed in Sao Paulo to see an old friend. This was 2014, in the right at the March, or it was just before Carnival, because we went for Carnival in 2014.
Wow!
Landed in Sao Paulo, spent an amazing weekend there, had a couple of gigs. I was lucky to sort of be able to organise a series of gigs.
What, really?
Around.
I thought you were playing for others.
6-7 gigs, DJ gigs, and then we went.
Playing as a DJ, not making nights or parties. No. Okay.
No, it's other people doing it.
Okay.
So, and like the first night we were in Sao Paulo was on a rooftop in this kind of Heineken sponsored party.
Sao Paulo is just.
It was cool.
It's super cool.
Yeah.
Because it's not like Rio. It's not photogenic.
Yeah.
But the vibe and the real life in that city, I would say, it's a little bit like if you think of Glasgow and London. London would be Rio, the place you go to see beautiful places and feel in a city that is beautiful.
Glasgow's a bit edgier.
But exactly. And Sao Paulo, it is a little bit like that.
Yeah.
Very intense in terms of what all that is happening at the same very industrial as well. I love Sao Paulo.
Yeah. But no, totally. I didn't spend enough time there, to be fair. But then it was a whistle-stop tour because then went to then to Rio, did a gig in a very nice posh bar, thanks to DJ Mam. And then, and then we went to Olinda and Recife just before Carnival to do some workshops in Maracatu and dancing. And because I went with a friend, Mariana Mafua, or Mafua is her brand, and she was really important to the whole trip, to be honest, and helped organise. And then we started Carnival in Olinda and Recife. Had this mad weekend where I was playing on Saturday night in Recife Carnival. Then we flew back to Rio for one day, Sunday in Carnival, and then we went back and then I went to, oh my god, I've forgotten. Anyway, it was a crazy. Went to like 3 different places in Brazil and over Carnival, and back for the final day in in Rio. I've actually forgotten the name of the place there.
Any favorite experience?
I mean, being on Olinda in the daytime in heat with all the bands parading through the streets is pretty special. I really like the frevo music when it's played live, and maracatu drums. Probably the most powerful is the Night of the Silent Drums, which is in Olinda leading up to Carnival, where all the maracatu groups from the region come to parade through the town up to the church, and it's really powerful procession. I mean, for me, the maracatu is really amazing rhythm. Yeah, so it was really special.
Very splendid.
And seeing Salvador, we saw Carlinhos Brown twice in Salvador. We saw so many good bands because it was the build up to Carnival. So we saw a lot of that. It was like Carnival but without the hectic.
Yeah.
You know, hectic nature, especially in Salvador.
Opening.
You know?
To the big madness. So I guess.
So it's a real shame we only went once to Brazil. I need to go back for sure. But then we ended up in Brasilia, and down in the parks in
such a crazy city
around there, and also But then we went back a couple of years ago to Colombia for Carnival in Barranquilla, and that was incredible. So
I love that country. I always say that they should conquer us.
Oh my God, controversial.
Very controversial. But I just love the way they are. I think the fact that we are an oil country makes us very unbearable sometimes. And Colombians are very humble and very... They have a sense of drama that I feel connected with. I also feel very connected with that sense of drama Argentinians have, and I wanted to ask you if all the people from countries that are less tropical, let's say, they feel excluded from Movimientos, or what do you do to make everyone feel welcome?
I have to say there's quite a lot of Argentinians have embraced our nights, I have to say.
And Andean countries?
I think so. And people get it. Yeah, and you don't really think too much about that. I think we do. We're diverse enough, and there's enough cumbia in Argentina, and now countries like Chile has. I really like the music coming out in Chile and a lot of the hip hop scene and electronic music. I think now you're seeing, especially what I referred to earlier, this new emerging electronic scene, and I think there's certain things that certainly this kind of folkloric electronic sound is quite universal around the continent. It's one of these things cumbia was kind of, you could say it was universally Latin American. But I think this sound, which embraces the folklore, digital...
I think that sounds spatial cumbia in Santuario.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorites.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, well, that's a Mexican guy, Panther. And he's very much influenced by this new scene, electronic scene. But it has that track has a real kind of UK club sound as well.
I'm trying to remember this compilation, this project from Argentina that was tango, electronic tango.
Bajo Fondo.
Yes, Bajo Fondo.
Yeah.
When
that was about the same time. When we referred to those bands at that era, Nova Lima, Gotan project.
Gosh, you are good with names.
I think, those are really key.
Yes, but I was trying to remember. And
I saw Bajo Fondo at the South Bank. I think it was at the Queen Elizabeth Hall.
I interviewed him quite.
Okay, Gustavo.
Like twice, I think. Yeah.
I'm not going to say his second name because I always get that
Gustavo Santaolalla or something like that. Not even for me it's easy.
But no, they were
Santaolalla.
They were a good live band. It's not so much my thing anymore, and I think the tango. I'm not going to say anything about tango.
Too Italian and too tragical.
It's potentially, I don't think I should really say what I'm saying.
Don't say anything, don't worry. But
no, I think there's a history of tango, isn't it, with being whitewashed as well.
Yeah.
And I think, the most amazing tango artist, his name I've completely forgotten, when I heard a video of him, and he's a real, I think he was living in Paris, but he's he may have been even black Uruguayan or something, but he was doing this tango, and it was with the roots of tango.
Yeah, but
and it was
that happened with everything.
Of course.
Then you have always the real thing and the contra-cultural response to most everything. Talking about that, how do you manage to keep a crew of people going to your events open-minded, like also open? You don't know, it's not enough to be open-minded. Sometimes you need to know, you need to be a little bit, know a little bit of culture to get engaged. Otherwise you don't engage. So
it's true. I guess think it's more difficult now because people, as you say, expect to hear a certain a certain sound when they go out, or if they go clubbing. They kind of know, there's a lot of sort of generic nights, R&B, hip hop, or Afrobeats, and your Afrobeats night, and you just know you're going to hear all of the tunes that you want to hear, or a reggaeton night.
Not many surprises there.
You know what you're going to get at a reggaeton night, but it always, I'm sure most of those reggaeton nights are hugely popular because they give people what they want. But that, in a way, that's not
exactly what you want.
Yeah, I think you've got to give people enough of what they want, but to also challenge them. That's you give them a little bit, and then, not too much of it. I think.
Yes, that's what we do here in Metralla Rosa as well.
It's about making people think, be out of the box. I think, and that's really important. I think
with music it's super
space.
Easy because then there's this joy, there's alcohol, there's a lot of things that makes you less resistant to whatever is coming or to whatever is being offered.
That's one of the reasons we started the Love Carnival party, because we wanted to to create an atmosphere that set the tone rather than necessarily a music policy. Obviously there was a broadly tropical music policy, but it was more about creating an atmosphere and I think you do find that a lot nowadays. You have a lot of nights that are more like safe spaces for people, or queer communities, or black communities. There's more of that in London now. You have those nights, and that's really important.
The last party of Love Carnival was in February 2020.
No, we were meant to do something in. Well, yeah, sorry, there was one in 2020. Yeah, that was the last party that we did.
Last one.
Yeah, before the lockdown. And then we had was the 5th birthday. Love Carnival was meant to be last year with Dengue
and it didn't happen.
And no, it's going to happen this October, hopefully.
Okay.
And that's
Fingers
a big
crossed.
one, because those two artists are huge, right now, in terms of their profile and the music that they're producing. It's just awesome. So Dengue, Peruvian electronic, and then El Búho, who's a British guy. I think he's from Derbyshire, and really, really nice, humble guy, but he runs a record label called Shika Shika, and which is a really amazing electronic music from around the world, but primarily with a sort of Latin American focus, and they're really pushing this kind of interesting. Shika Shika, and El Búho is a producer, obviously, in his own right, hugely successful, and So it's really exciting.
So how do you see the future of Movimientos? What are the projects that are coming? How do you feel about parties with masks?
Yeah, I don't think I hope the mask thing won't happen. It could be interesting.
New dress code.
For a party with an act like Dengue, maybe it's appropriate, everyone wearing mask, but I don't know. I'm optimistic. I think I think, you know, I don't know. You put me on the spot, really. I
You
should
haven't thought-
have a clear vision for how things are going to go ahead.
Why
But
not?
I'm more of someone who feels their way through life, and I think
That's why you work
it's-
with South Americans. I feel
think-
like that too. I don't know why I'm asking you this. I cannot see beyond tomorrow. Like I actually cannot see beyond now.
Yeah. If I gave you like a 5-year plan, then it would be boring, right? And
Yeah.
you know, I think that keeping true to what we do and keeping democratizing the power as well, recognizing the power that we have, and trying to you know, empower others, you know, through our platform. I think that's a really key thing for me, and to step back from being, you know, the white guy doing Latin American music, you know. So
does it feel uncomfortable sometimes?
I wouldn't say. I think it depends how
you being
how you
embraced?
deal with it. You know, I know generally really positive. So but I think you always have to be aware of that, and aware of your privilege and position, and always step back from kind of anything that relates to your ego, you know, fueling your ego in that sense, when continue to recognize that our importance as an organization is to you know, facilitate a kind of a platform, but also, you know, empowering other artists.
Embracing all these different cultures and all these views, culturally speaking, politically speaking, historically, teaching yourself, learning through your journey. How has changed you? How that has made you different, or I would like to say better?
Yeah, I mean, massively. I mean, yeah, just educating, like anyone, all of us should be educating ourselves consistently, right? If we just stay stuck in one mode of thinking, then it's really can be really negative. So I think just understanding more about the history. I'm reading a lot of like Latin American literature as well, and obviously history as well as other things. But I think for me that was
Do you think
really
now you
important
are
to
a little bit
continue the
more
education.
extrovert and more
Extrovert.
extrovert than when you started?
I think I wear more colourful, slightly more colourful clothes. Spending, particularly the Brazilians were a big influence. You know, my friends who were I met them through through carnival parties and carnival music. So they were naturally very extravagant. So yeah, I mean, and Teresa is obviously
Exactly.
very-
Your partner is
Yeah.
Venezuelan.
yes.
So we also interviewed Teresa. That's another episode you should watch, because she's the director of FLAWA, Festival of Latin American Women in Art.
Yeah, and go and follow.
How is
Flower.
that? Is that been easy to be with a Venezuelan?
No, you put me right on the spot, right?
It's very
easy.
challenging.
Well,
not
no, of course. I mean, it's been great. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how.
I don't know what to say.
I don't know how to answer that. Yeah, but yeah, no, and I mean, we've obviously fed into the whole flower, you know, helping, and you know, we talk a lot about how to develop flower, and she's done an amazing job, and she's just really
she gave you the credit
inspiring
of inspiring her, in the sense of when she said something like this should be done, you should do it, and you told her you should do it.
Yeah, I mean, that was it was a no-brainer. It's like, why should I be doing it, you know? So and I can use my expertise to feed into that.
Of course,
or
both projects
knowledge,
are
you know.
really close to each other and normally organically interconnected. That's beautiful. That's lovely.
It's inevitable if we're, you
Yeah.
know, but I think it is also important to keep, you know, make sure, you know, keep them separate in that sense. So that I think they, you know, she has a brilliant team female curators around her, and people that really, you know, I think look up to her, and she's a really inspiring person to direct the festival. And you know,
she's another force of nature.
Yeah, unfortunately, the second edition couldn't happen, but I think it's, you know, something will happen later this year. There was a few shows that
some things happen online, and this year I just signed up for a Mexico weekend with a lot of activities. And it should be amazing. I'm very looking forward to it.
Yeah, there's a brilliant writer called Fernando Melchor, which is she wrote a brilliant book called Hurricane Season, which is a very dark exploration of
like a thriller.
It's kind of. It's I don't know. It's an unconventional thriller, but
I haven't read it, but
it's a brilliant book. We started a book club on contemporary Latin American fiction during the recent lockdown, and that was the first book. But I think it's really interesting book. But so she's speaking at this Calling Mexico event, and there's a brilliant artist called Power, who is she's really kind of related to the music that I like, you know,
I was going to say
electronic,
that
organic mix.
She looks really interesting.
Yeah,
I looked her up, and there's also a documentary.
Yeah, about a journalist who's.
Yes, I have my son over that day to look together the documentary.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a family plan.
Oh great. Yeah. Well, it's really inspiring film.
Yes,
really
I think it's called
powerful.
La Voz del Silencio or something like that. I don't want to say it because I'm probably very,
I know
very
the name
wrong,
of the Carmen Aristegui.
And I think the documentary is something like El Silencio, La Voz del Silencio. I don't want to say because every time I do this, I make awful mistakes. And to finish, because we are getting to the end of this interview, unfortunately.
It's been a pleasure.
Please recommend me few artists you think we should look out, but try please to choose things that are really very crazy fusions, like neo reggaeton or spatial cumbia or whatever of these crazy combinations of genres, musical genres.
What are you interested in, more in the UK sound or Latin America?
We can do a combination, 2 and 2. Let's do 4. Let's choose 4.
Well, okay.
4, 2 and 2.
I think one of the more interesting artists in London who's doing is Desta French. I don't know if you've had her on the show, but she's someone who's from London, and she mixes that kind of hip hop and soul R&B with her Colombian roots.
Okay.
I don't have a genre tag for her because she mixes all different styles like trap and R&B, and I think it's a real London mix as well. I think for me, she's probably the defining artist of like the younger Latinx generation, Desta French. So I would definitely make a nod to her. She's not doing that sort of reggaeton. There's some artists who are doing the reggaeton thing here.
Feminist reggaeton.
I
whatever it's called.
I assume she's definitely
whatever
feminist.
that means.
And then let's see. I mean, wow, you put me on the spot. I just did a playlist on Spotify the other day with
it's called something
Fresh
Fruta.
And we're just trying to represent a lot of the stuff maybe that the eclectic sound, let's say, from kind of rootsy Afro-Latin music to electronic and cumbia. What else? Who else have we got? I can't even remember the list. I mean, Power is on that list. I think I've mentioned a lot of the artists. I mean, for example, Juanita from Wara is also about to release her debut album, and that's a really interesting mix of her Latin and African roots.
Wow,
And
sounds
that's
good.
that's coming soon on
She's such a good singer.
Yeah, Strat Records. Well worth looking out for.
And from international, I would say Lido Pimienta.
Of course, yeah.
Everyone should know her.
Yeah. But yeah, there's
and maybe Flavia Coelho from Paris.
I'm a big
Brazil.
fan. Yeah. And she's someone that is actually real mix of that like Brazilian, sound, but also she's kind of does a ragamuffin.
I also have to thank you for that discovery.
Okay.
Yes. I love her.
Yeah, Flavia is always collaborating with different people, and she's a really cool artist. Very nice person as well. So, but one of the artists I will say that is on our list is a group, probably one of the best live shows for me, top 5 of the live shows that we put on. A group called Afro Cidade from Bahia.
Afro Cidade.
Afro Cidade.
Okay.
And they have a new EP out, which I've been waiting for since we put on that show, because they'd only released like a little EP before that, and now they have this new release, which is, puts them on the map a bit more, and it's a kind of hip hop meets the Salvador Afro drum sound, and it's got it's just got that Salvador drum swing, and for me, I love that. I love those sort of timbalada and that kind of sound. The Bahia drum, the Bahia is, for me, that's really powerful. And I think it's kind of unique sound that you don't hear too often. It's very specific to that region, and people here don't know that sound very well. But there's loads of cool artists from Salvador. And like I said, Afro Cidade, probably one of the best shows we'd ever put on. They had 2 male dancers as part of the show. And they were just incredible.
Because, I also have a very humiliating confession to make to close this interview, and is that I haven't been in a Movimientos event.
Oh, really?
So I'm really looking forward to Afro Cidade.
When they come back,
when we come back to live, next event, I will be there.
We'll be at Peckham, if this is going out soon. We'll probably be at Peckham Levels in June, and then back at Hootenanny, which is one of our regular gigs. So, but I'll keep
cheering you up with all my heart and soul and movimientos.
So kind. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much. It was a huge pleasure. Thank you.
My pleasure is all mine. Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much for staying with us this far. I hope you enjoyed that. And if that's the case, I would like to suggest you to enjoy the rest of our content. Also, if you haven't done it yet, please subscribe to our channel and hit the bell so you can get notifications every time we share a new episode with all of you.